Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner. And we're here with another episode of VSW Podcast. I'm alongside
Disabled.
And this is the kickoff of WrestleMania week. I mean, tonight we're going to have WrestleMania Raw, basically. That's, getting things set up. SmackDown Friday. You're going to have
NXT
Saturday afternoon. And then Saturday night and Sunday, the big ones. This year is a 2-night Mania, as it was last year
and
the year before. All coming in during the pandemic era. And, a lot of people have mixed feelings about this. I know people that would rather sit through a 6 or 7 hour event. I know other people that enjoy the breakup.
I think it depends how you look at it, Versace. Some people do go to Mania every year, whether they go to indie shows, WrestleCons, Access, or just the shows. Some people prefer the one night on Sunday. Some people might find it better. It depends on you. There's no right or wrong answer.
There isn't, but I can tell you one thing. It is the biggest week in wrestling. All the indie scene goes down to wherever Mania is. There's all sorts of shows running. And it all started on March 31st, 1985. That's before you were even born, Disabled Wolf.
A little before I was born.
Yeah, no. And what a night. It was at Madison Square Garden, legendary arena for WrestleMania at the time and just for sports entertainment at the time.
General.
Exactly. I mean, it might not be the biggest arena today, but it was a very important place to hold this event. Not to mention that, WWE was based out of Connecticut area, New York area.
Like, WWE's always been hybrid between Boston and New York. That's what
at the time, it was the World Wrestling Federation. They still didn't have any. The wildlife hadn't filed a claim against them yet. So we can just go over some brief numbers here. In attendance was only, now this is kind of shocking, 19,121.
Ooh, that's kind of small for now.
Right? On today's standards, that's very, very small.
For Raw, that'd be amazing.
For Raw, yeah. I mean, you had on the commentary, you had Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse the Body Ventura, two of the best.
Oh, yeah.
Howard Finkel did all the announcing.
Howard Finkel.
You had some locker room correspondence there. You had Mean Gene Oakland, he was one of the best, and Lord Alfred Hayes.
Can't forget these two.
Definitely not. And we had some, special guests, too. Special guest ring announcer for the main event was Billy Martin. Special guest timekeeper was Liberace. Special guest referee for the main event was Muhammad Ali. And then you had a special guest for the main event was also the Rockettes. Those at the time, these were the biggest, names in the world. You brought in pop culture into the wrestling world. You got to remember, they had Mr. T for this.
Yeah.
Big pop culture icon. Huge.
Cyndi Lauper, too, right?
Yep. I mean, we're going to go through the matches. We're going to talk a little bit about them. And, but this was a big thing in the wrestling world because it was the first time that, anybody had put on such an event of this magnitude.
Not only that, like from what my father was telling me, you could have gone to an NBA or NHL arena and watch it. It was the first of its kind.
It was. And, wrestling was still kind of territorial. So this kind of combined it. They combined the territories in this.
This launched an event people may take for granted, even if they weren't born then, going to Mania weekend, largely because of that one event in WrestleMania 1 and MSG.
Really, it is. And, and like I said, I was a little young to watch this one live, but I definitely have seen it, and I saw it maybe like a couple years after it aired or whenever it went to VHS, probably like in 88, 89 when I started to rent videos. But, this was a great thing. And, there was, you opened it up, starting everything. The one man, you ever guessed, believe it or not, opening up WrestleMania, starting it all, was Tito Santana.
Wow. One of the legendary IC champions.
And I've actually saw him as local as, like the next town over wrestled. But, he went on to defeat the Executioner. And, and these matches, a lot of them were, they didn't have the big names that you had today. Not everybody was a superstar, but these were the roster, and these were people like to see. In the next match, you had David Sammartino with Bruno in his corner versus Brutus Beefcake with Luscious Johnny Valiant. And this actually went to a no contest.
First ever match in WrestleMania history, eh?
Yep. And then you had legendary Ricky the Dragon Steamboat defeating Matt Bourne. Funny thing is, years later, Matt Bourne would become Doink the Clown.
Ooh, legendary. Doink had like 3 or 4 different performers.
He was the first original one. Unfortunately, he passed away at a young age, but he was the original one. He was the heel and the one that, first wrestled in WrestleMania 9. So you could say he was in the first WrestleMania and WrestleMania 9 there. And you also had King Kong Bunny with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, defeating SD Special Delivery Jones. And that was a great matchup because, you got to see a big man like King Kong Bundy just go out and do what he does best, and that's defeat people. Wrestling has lost a lot of its big men. It's no longer this world of big men wrestling. There was also a body slam challenge. If Big John started, anybody could body slam him. He was being managed by one of the greatest managers of all time, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Ooh.
And his challenge would be accepted and defeated, as Andre the Giant would go on and body slam him.
Oh, what a epic proportion that was.
It was. And at this time, Andre the Giant was a fan favorite. It wouldn't be until a few years later that he would actually join with Bobby the Brain Heenan and, have his epic heel run, feuding with Hulk Hogan and other top superstars. You had, get this, the Intercontinental Championship is actually on the card, to say Wolf. Imagine that. Yeah, the Intercontinental Championship being defended here. Junkyard Dog defeating Greg the Hammer Valentine with Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Junkyard Dog, very underrated wrestler in the WWF, WWE. So same thing with Greg the Hammer. He wasn't one of the most, showboat wrestlers, but he was a solid performer. He would go out and give an excellent match. And if you remember the commentators, they'd always say, he would be the best kind of guy in matches that were long because it would take him a while to warm up. I remember them talking about him like that, You also had on this card the World Tag Team Championship match. Okay, you had Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik.
Ooh.
With classy Freddie Blassie defeating, get this one down, Mike Rotundo.
Ooh, the father of the legendary Fiend.
And Barry Windham alongside Captain Lou Albano to become the new champions. These were days before the IRS man would come into play. But, Mike Rotundo was still an excellent tag team performer back then. And they did held gold until Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik would capture that. You also had a women's championship match, to say Wolf.
Oh, wow.
Wendy Richter with Cyndi Lauper would go on to defeat Liliana Kai with the Fabulous Moolah to become the new women's champion.
What a legendary match that was. That set the course for women's wrestling to be looked back at on a positive note.
It did, because, and that's the thing with WWE up until a long time, recently rather, is their women's division was very flippy-floppy. You would see these matches, and then you would go years without any women's matches. Then you would go years with a bunch in a title. Then you would go years without a title. You never would really see consistency like you do now, I can only name like a few of the women's wrestlers I remember in the 90s. You had like Bull Nakano. You had yeah.
Sable,
that was later on. Earlier 90s, you had Medusa.
Oh, yeah. Alonda Blaze.
But prior to that, there was gaps in between that with no women's champion. And then the main event of the evening, and this was a great just overall because it brought in, like I said, the pop culture. They did video promos of these guys training together. They did all sorts of stuff. It was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with Jimmy the Superfly Snooker in their corner. And they were going up against Rowdy Piper, who was probably top heel at the time, and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff with Cowboy Bob Orton.
Talk about the heel dream team versus the face dream team, huh?
It was at the time. And you had this, you had Mr. T and the A-Team. That was the name of the show, I think, right? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't really remember. It was a long time ago. But you had him, so he was a pop culture icon. I remember seeing him in cereal boxes all over the place. I pity the fool. Everybody knows Mr. T with all the gold and everything, okay? Everybody knows him. And then you had Hulk Hogan, one of the biggest rising stars. He was in AWA for a little bit. Vince saw him. They brought him in. He was a heel. He was he was a bad guy for a while.
Absolutely.
And then they saw his potential, and they had him beat Iron Sheik, capture the title. Walking into this, he was already world champion. And this would set the stage. This would set the stage for what WrestleMania would become.
We loved and hated over the years.
All
and dates back to the first WrestleMania.
It does. It really does.
That was before there was a Royal Rumble at the time.
And they would always try to outdo themselves, every year. Trying to get bigger, making it more grandiose, bigger matches. WrestleMania 3, briefly, I can say, was probably one of the biggest ever WrestleManias you're ever going to see. I mean, you had a whopping 93,173 in attendance.
At an NFL-sized stadium.
At the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan. You had two larger-than-life guys going at it, and,
because their football team wasn't larger than life.
Definitely was not. This arena was huge. They had mini rings bringing wrestlers out. And like I said, it would get bigger. Bigger, better, I think was the thing. And you would continue to see it. And then, their attendances would drop off and on throughout the years.
Because Andre was this larger-than-life figures, kind of like...
But you would have it sitting in, the 20,000. Then you'd have it pick up to 70,000. All depends. It depends on the arena, where they brought it, where they did it, what was going on. They've had it at all different arenas over the years. You had them, all the way even in Toronto. And then you would have one in, Las Vegas. And, it'd be a small attendance there. But they didn't do what they do now for the WrestleManias.
No way. There was no two nights back then.
No two nights. No football stadiums except, that WrestleMania 3. And, the Toronto was a pretty big one. But, like I said, it was still the biggest night in wrestling history. You had at that time, you only had one show a year, maybe two. Royal Rumble would come next. SummerSlam, Survivor Series, those would all start to trickle in. And you would have 4 running a year. But they didn't all come at just once. It took time for those guys to build up. And, the first Royal Rumble was only 20 men. And it was won by Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And for a long time, it didn't even mean anything if you did win. And then one year, the title was vacant.
Oh, yeah.
And they put it up for grabs. That was the year the Flair took it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started to give out number 1 title contender shots. If you won the Rumble, you would go on to WrestleMania to face the winner. And we had Yoko win the next year to go on to face Bret Hart.
Well, that was a legendary match for Sachi.
Great matchup. Really great matchup. And if you want to know the whole story of that match, I suggest watching that. Yoko's doing a special on WWE Peacock's network there, because it goes in behind the scenes. It talks about it. Talks about what Yoko was like and how it was, and why the kind of match kind of was full steam ahead in the first half and kind of fell flat the second. The ending, why Hogan was even there, why he won the belt. I mean, a lot gets kind of explained. And a lot of it is back.
Everyone thought Hogan was going to leave back then.
He was leaving. He just wanted one more title run, and he wanted to not lose the belt to Bret Hart by any means. He wanted to take it, and he said, I'll lose it to Yoko. Can't be clean, has to be dirty, but it will not be going to Bret Hart.
But Bret Hart tried to do the same a little less than a decade later, Versace.
He did. So, I mean,
We all know that story.
we do. So, but these were all the stepping stones that make what WrestleMania the week is all about. I mean, could Vince imagine back then that it would be this big week now, the whole week involved? You got three
I think he
teams.
expected it to be like the Super Bowl of wrestling, but not to the point where there'd be every indie show under the world trying to book shows.
Oh, everybody. I mean, I know so many superstars heading down to Dallas this week just to go down there, try to get a glimpse, try to get booked.
This is the first real Mania week in a few years.
It is. Last year was kind of like a soft opening kind of Mania because the year before was just a total washout.
That's when the pandemic started. People are holding hope that they'd be able to not only go to Mania, they were hoping they'd get moved in the summertime.
But what happened instead was, Florida decided to make wrestling a mandatory, and they, allowed WrestleMania to run. But they were lucky that they favored that way. They could have said no. To make it essential business. And, luckily for fans, we got to have that WrestleMania. They did the best they could. We got some great cinematic matches, actually, in that one, to be honest with you. And you had Undertaker's final Mania match.
And no one realized it till a little after.
Nope. It would also be the last time you saw the Good Brothers in WWE, and nobody thought that would happen either. So, like I said, though, it all started back in 85 with that first ever WrestleMania that spawned so many moments, so many legends, so many personas. Like I said, so many different things over the last 38 years now?
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild. You've been to a few Manias. I've been to a few. Yeah. And they keep getting bigger and bigger. There's more and more involved. You got the Access now. You got the meet and greets.
The WrestleCon.
WrestleCon running. And like you said, the never-ending indie shows.
Like, you can make what you want of that week. You don't have to necessarily go to every WWE show. You can do meet and greet. You don't have to go to all of them. You pick and choose.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're a wrestling fan, you want to get closer to the action, this is the time of year to do it. And I think that's something special about the Big Four pay-per-views is they do kind of give you more meet and greet and more kind of options in that sense. Where there is some meet and greets at the regular pay-per-views.
They are doing it a little different with these panels on Access.
Yeah. But it is going to be a good time if you are out there. And I really think, it's going to be a little bit different too with NXT running their show in the afternoon.
And it's not called a takeover anymore.
No, it's Stand and Deliver. They're following that pirated tradition of last year. But overall, we have to wait and see. I think tonight's going to be Raw. I think is going to kick it off. I think they're going to go strong. I think, they want people to be into this.
It's going to start off with an interaction between the chairman of himself, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and the architect Seth Rollins. Because Seth Rollins, if you've been paying attention to WWE as of late, the biggest storyline is Seth Rollins not being on the card, tried to face Kevin Owens to take his place to interview Stone Cold. That didn't work out. Last week he tried to beat AJ Styles to take his place to face Edge. That didn't work out.
So, it's going to open up pretty hot and heavy, and we're going to get some answers right tonight, just starting tonight, and like I said, it all kicks off. And I think there's even going to be, people are starting to head down to Dallas now.
Now even. If not, definitely by Wednesday or Thursday for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Where's Raw tonight?
I forget where. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, so they're doing the Raw up here.
Remember, they were supposed to, a few years ago, before the world shut down, get Austin on 3/16 Day.
Yeah, I remember that. But they were gonna. So they're gonna do they're up here, and then they're gonna all go down south. So, yeah, we're going to be doing our previews and talk about it later tonight. All that action will come here on the VSW podcast, so you'll want to check into that.
What we're going to do this week is tonight we're going to give you both Night 1 and Night 2 preview. We're going to interrupt for a little break in between the two, but we're still going to have one big stream tonight. And this week we're going to try and do WWE 2K12 22 stimulations on each match.
Yeah, see what the WWE algorithm in the video game
and
thinks
if
of
you
it.
paid attention to our YouTube community page, you know that we posted a question. We're going to do a special Friday night shoot the shit on WrestleMania, and any questions you have for us, whether it's past Manias, the current card, how you want the lineups, what match are you looking forward to, all that fun stuff, type it up right now.
Most
so this
definitely.
Thursday or Friday, we'll go over it with all of you.
Most definitely. Can't wait for all that and more. This is going to be one hell of a week to say, well, we're going to have a lot of fun.
And
like I said, not to
will
mention
be our recaps.
Not to mention the recaps of all the indie shows that we're going to be getting results from. And you got the collective, you got GCW, you got a lot of friends working there.
MLW, you got that new controversial promotion.
Yep, you got all sorts of different things going on. So
Japan.
This is going to be a wild ride. I hope everybody, put on their belt and rides with us. Have yourself a good afternoon, everybody. We will be back later on tonight. Versace Stoner out.
I wrote